The jersey, if you want to.
Talk about the jet. We're on, guys.
We're on
Started.
now.
It's easy, isn't it?
Okay.
No warm up.
No,
We should just let it go anyway.
I thought I was going to do a 4 and 5 for a warm up first.
Don't start on 4 and 5. Never start on 4 and 5s ever again. Welcome in, my father,
Hey.
Johnny. Can I say then your full name?
No, go on if you want to.
Giancarlo Sabado Guido Zollo. And Benny, I don't know your middle name, Benny.
Thomas.
Thomas, that's right. Benny Benjamin Thomas Gardiner.
Yes.
My two biggest mentors. Super excited to have you on the Zollo and Katie show, and it's going on the Lee and Zollo show. It's going everywhere on YouTube as well. So
awesome.
Modern day technology. Super excited. How are we, guys?
Good.
Going good, mate.
Good.
Going good.
Going good. Benny just come off a tour for the New Zealand side. How was that?
Really good, mate. About 6.5, nearly 7 weeks away. New Zealand, Dubai, UK. Really good, mate. Really good.
And what was why were you in Dubai? Just for the holiday part of it?
Just for a break in between. So obviously, sort of travelling from New Zealand over to England, we had a bit of a break period of 2 weeks in between the game against Australia. So we played Australia in Auckland, had a win there, which was good. Then we had 2 weeks before we had to get to England and play, and we just felt that it was going to be a good idea to break the travel up a little bit. And so we stopped in Dubai for 3 days just to have a little bit of lay time to try and acclimatise with the time zones a little bit, which was really effective for us, we thought. And did some sightseeing and went out onto the Palms, which is the big man-made island over there. Went out for a drive out there to Hotel Atlantis, which was very mystical. Had a bit of a feed out there, and did some travel to a few other areas over there. So we basically got a cab. There was 7 of us, and the cabbie sort of drove us around for 4 hours and showed us all of the sights of Dubai. We saw the big, massive building, Bar Khalifa or something like that. It's called. Yeah, huge. Like
really?
Touching the sky. It's that high.
Really?
So that was pretty cool. And
what about your camel ridings?
Yeah, we went on a safari on the first night there. Yeah, so we went out to some sort of reserve. I think they call it a desert reserve or something like that in Dubai. It was out in the sticks of Dubai, so it took us about an hour to get there from the city. They picked us up in 4-wheel drives, and they took us in about 8 4-wheel drives. And when we got out there was about 50 4-wheel drives, all exactly the same, like everything high order, really expensive Land Cruisers, all brand new. So in Dubai, your car has to be less than 5 years old. And then once it gets to 5 years old, they ship them off to Iran and Iraq and other places like that. So it was all top-end type stuff. And basically when we got picked up, they took us out into the desert, and we did some desert 4-wheel driving, rode a camel, had a good meal, which was a traditional meal out there, and that was probably one of the really good starting points for us after being in New Zealand for a week of getting the team together and building relationships and stuff like that. So it's pretty impressive, eh?
They eat a lot of weird food out there, like camels' knackers and all that.
We didn't have any camels' knackers.
That was like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and he started.
He's already going.
He's already going.
So mate, it was awesome. The Dubai part was really cool. Obviously nice not to just stop there, like to get on a bit of a roll and then head over to England, and all went from there. Right? Yeah.
And so how far back did you start picking the team? Like, how far back does Madge start picking it, or you guys start picking it?
Well, we had a test match in June. So in June, we sort of got a bit of a look at who we wanted in the team. We went to Denver and played a test match over there, which was a bit of a highlight for us as a group, but also for the people of Denver. And so we debuted 4 players in that test match, looking to sort of build that towards the back end of the year. They were all in good form, and they deserved that opportunity. So from that point on, we're sort of looking at who to bring into the team, who to keep in the team. So it was probably a 3-month sort of thing on selecting the final squad. We took away, I think it was 24 players, and I think that no one was really locked into that squad until we got to the end, and injuries and all of that sort of stuff come into it as well. So by the time we got to the grand final in the NRL, we were pretty close to where we needed to be. Then we're just pending on a few blokes being able to get through those last couple of games, and we came up with a squad that we had, and we picked form players and people who we thought were going to bring to the jersey, the Kiwi jersey for the long term. And, in the debutants that we had 2 debutants in the game against Australia, which was 2 weeks after the grand final. 2 of those guys came out of the grand final, so Brandon Smith from Melbourne and also Joseph Manu from the Roosters. And they played really well in that first game and just went from there. So, building that experience, they've got 4 tests under their belt now, and they're going to be better players for the long term for New Zealand.
Yeah. And what about is there any link between the Kiwis and the All Blacks? Like, do you do anything with? Did they do anything with them?
They support each other really well. So while we were away, the All Blacks were playing at the same time as well. So we sent messages to each other, through this sort of stuff, through YouTube and Facebook and all of that sort of stuff, to wish each other luck. The coaches have got together a few times throughout the year. Some of the senior players and the All Blacks senior players have gotten together, and some ex-players from both groups, the Kiwis and the All Blacks, have got together. And obviously the All Blacks is one of those brands that's so strong throughout the world. So we felt that as the Kiwis, we could learn a lot from them and their branding. And I suppose what they believe is important to be an All Black is some of the things that we're trying to build in as being important to be a Kiwi. So, it's great to get advice either way from each group and roll forward from there.
Is there anything in particular that you learned from them? Like one thing that stood out? Yeah,
it's probably their leadership. They have really high order leadership, and they've put a lot of work into their leadership over probably the last 5 to 10 years. So Richie McCaw was obviously their captain for a long period of time. So Matt spent some time with Richie and racked his brain a little bit on some things that were important, and maybe we changed our leadership structure a little bit as a result of that and put some different things into place. So, leadership was a big one that we thought we needed to improve as a group. So using some of that stuff that they've been using over there, sort of took some advice and moved forward. Yeah.
Did he do any commando camps or anything like that?
Not this time around. It's a little bit short for the preparation, but funnily enough, we had some guys from military background with us while we were away. So although there was no commando camps as such, there was some support from those guys, and they were actually around leadership. So what we learned from Richie was put into place from some other people that we'd worked with in the past, and we tried to build that leadership over the camp, which we thought went pretty well.
That was probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I've got to thank you guys for letting me go on that commando camp. 4 days, was it 3 days, was it?
3 days we went for,
3 days.
It felt like 4 days.
Yeah, it felt like forever.
But it was just interesting that how far you can push yourself. I know it sounds cheesy to say, but how far, like you think you're done after. I remember, I think the first night when we had to do that plank thing from one field to the other, that took us like whatever it was, an hour and a half or something ridiculous. And we had to get up and hold a card above our head.
Yeah.
And then we had to do laps and we were doing boxing. And then I thought, all right, we're going to go to sleep now. It's like 12 o'clock. But then we go into the pool. Yeah. And then we were there till what time? Like 3, 4 in the morning. And they had to run back. And you think that when you stopped, there's so many times where I'm thinking, this is my limit now, and then you run another 5K or something ridiculous.
I think the funniest thing for me was when we got a selfie on the bus, thinking that we were sort of going out to a nice sort of dapper little activity for 3 days, and then when we got out there, the look on your dad's face when they came onto the bus and dragged us off and stood us up outside and made us stand to attention and yell our names out and all of that sort of stuff. It was sort of like reality had checked in, and it wasn't going to be a holiday.
No way. Come with balaclavas, didn't they?
Yeah.
Pretty scary still.
Yeah.
At first.
But I remember, I think it was Craig or without a say his name.
Yeah.
He came in the end and he said that you can only measure times of character through times of adversity and stress.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, far out. I would have just been happy if you told me that at the start without going through that whole adversity and stress.
Yeah.
But it was one of the best life lessons I've learned over the last few years. And then I think from there, I'd run a marathon the next year.
Yeah, you did,
28 days preparation. I've run one 30K run, and that was it. And then it was just because I've went on that commando camp, I just knew that I could keep pushing to do things.
Yeah, it teaches you different lessons, I think. So for myself, like, wasn't so much the physical side of the physicality of the camp, which is probably the thing you got more out of it. It was more the mental side for me, in that I think I only, in the time we were there for 3 days, I only got about an hour and a half sleep in that time, and that probably taught me that you don't have to sleep to get by. Sleep's a great recovery method and all of that sort of stuff, but your body and your mind has the ability to push through things if you want to push through them. And for my coaching, sort of from that point on, I was able to work out that if I had hard work that needed to be done, the sleep factor wasn't a big thing. At the time, I could get through the work and then get to sleep later and refuel and sort of go from there. So I think there's all sorts of different lessons that you can learn from something like that, and probably for myself, it was more the mental lessons that I learned rather than the physical ones.
Yeah. Elon Musk does that. Elon Musk, who started Tesla?
Yeah.
I think he started PayPal, didn't he? One of those big multi-billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
But he said that if you don't sleep and you just keep doing things for, in 2 months, you can get what you can do in 2 months rather than what you can do in 6 or 8 months or a year. So that's how he sort of looks at things.
It's a little bit ludicrous, to be honest with you, but
genius and ludicrous.
Yeah. It's like Ray Lewis, the great NFL player, used to say something of the likes of, if you're sleeping more than 2 hours, you're wasting time. So that was his theory, that he was up working, doing whatever he needed to do, and he only needed 2 hours sleep. But I think in a physical performance environment, that might be a little bit ridiculous. But you get the message, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a bit interesting in the fact that how we've been programmed right from such an early age that we need to have sleep, and you have to have 8 hours sleep. But then when you go into a commando thing, you have to reprogram your brain to be in a situation to only have maybe 20 minutes sleep a day. You know what I mean? And they can reprogram their brains to do it quite quickly. Whereas, when you're, normal life situation, we take it for granted, I guess, that we can go to bed at 9 o'clock and have a good 8 or 9 hours sleep.
We actually feel like we need to have 9 hours sleep because we've been told for so long that we need to have 9 hours sleep rather than
get bed.
Yeah, we've got to go to bed because I need to get my rest to go to work. But those guys work on a bit of a different fathom, don't they? When they remove the emotion from it and go, well, this is what I need to do to get my job done. Yeah. And I don't really need all of that rest, but I can imagine they're pretty damn tired by the end of it.
Yeah, probably.
But that's what that's what I love about footy, though. That's what all the things that footy's brought me in the past is those sorts of outside, like you going to Dubai. You travelling with the boys to Dubai, going on tours, the amount of people that you met along the way. Yeah. Like I always thought, Dad's taught me that lesson as a kid because I never played first grade or anything. So, and then I didn't get a chance to go to the top levels in that sense. But it wasn't about that. Looking back on it now, 31 years old, it's the amount of relationships and friendships that I've built along the way, and the life lessons that I've learned along the way that's helped me get to the position where I'm in now. Yeah. And that's what I'm thankful for. Where that's why I want to bring you guys in here, because there's a lot of young kids, young footy players think that's the only thing. Yeah. And then after that, what happens if you don't make it? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that footy shouldn't be the be all and end all, but simultaneously, you got to look at the other aspects that you can gain from footy, like what I've just mentioned.
Yeah, it's probably the driving force. I'd say the fact that people want to play at a high level and they want to get to the top of the game, whether it's the international level or the top of the game that they can get to. But at the end of the day, that's the motivation, and sometimes ability and capabilities get in the way of that. But it's the motivation that you receive from wanting to try and get there, whether you can transfer that motivation into other areas of your life when you find out that, maybe that's not the best thing for me, but what I've learned from that can be implemented into something else. And that's probably a little bit similar for yourself where, although you say you didn't get to the top end of the game, well, you've got to the top end of your own game. And it might not be the game of rugby league, but the game of life, in your own game of life, you've been able to get to the top of where you want to get to. Yeah. And that's come from some of the lessons that you've learned through being involved in the game that you love. And because it's the game that you love, there's passion involved in it. So therefore, motivation comes quite easily. And it's intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation. So therefore, you can transfer that into the other facets of your life which you have now, and that's where you get to the top of where you want to be.
Yeah. And Do you reckon, I don't know, this might be a silly question, not blowing smoke up your asses, but the amount of fitness that you gave me as a kid, 4 and 5s, hundreds, I was just thinking about it on the way over here, the 6100s that you made us do one time, and then if we didn't make it in 20 seconds, we're that methodical with it that you do another one. So I think we did like 70 or 75 100 metre sprints.
Yeah.
At the time, obviously, it sounds stupid, but it goes back to the commando thing we were talking about before. Those things there are the reasons why I became a personal trainer as well. Like I came from a position, and there was a lot of us that came from a position like Reece Pritchard. You know, doing all those pre-seasons. Now it's translated into a job for him. Into a career aspect.
Yeah.
Do you reckon though that other teams were doing the same amount of fitness at such a young age? Because you always pulled us up into the first grade training methods.
Yeah.
At a young age, I remember 16 years old, and I was training with Shane Flanagan and Ricky Stewart and all the Minicello and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So do you think that other teams, or is that just something that you had the foresight to see? Like, doesn't matter what age you are.
I don't know, mate. I think that some teams probably were doing it at the time, but I think that from the point of view of the group that we were with and the coaching group that we were with at the time, I think they felt it was important to have young blokes pushing from the bottom to help the guys at the top, and at the same time, the guys at the top would pull the young blokes from the bottom through. So it meant that it fast-tracked people to be at the higher level quicker if they were capable of being at that level.
Yeah.
And if people weren't capable of it, well, it made them better pretty quickly because we sort of found that if you were physically fit, it made it easier for you to play the game because you could see with a fitter head, which would mean that you're more focused and you're able to read the play better and all of that sort of stuff because you weren't worried about your heart-lung fitness. You were worried about what was happening with the game because your heart-lung fitness wasn't a problem. So your cardiovascular fitness wasn't an issue. You weren't puffed and worried about, how am I going to get through this next bit? You just knew you were going to get through that next bit. So therefore your performance was footy-orientated or sports-orientated. So I don't know if other clubs were doing it. That really didn't matter to us at the time. It just mattered what we were doing, and we were focusing on what we thought was best for the group. And probably a lot of that training that we did early on when you were there, that was stuff that we carried through to later on. And, between my dad and yourself, we adjusted it with different clubs that we'd been involved in, whether it was South or North or whatever, to try and get the perfect fit for the group that you had, depending on whether people were working, going to school, university students, full-time athletes. It just depended. There had to be adjustments, but it was always based on hard work to start off with, that's for sure.
I feel in that sense as well, it's hard work, but the whole team you're trying to create one group. So if one guy is struggling, you're going to try and help them out as well. It's not just about you. You know what I mean? I know you're feeling fatigued, but what about the person next to you? He's struggling along. You're trying to help him along as well. And I think what the ability that we had, it wasn't just as individuals. We brought a team together. The coaching staff was all as one, and the team was all as one. We all wanted to get that one objective, is to obviously win, but it wasn't being a selfish thing. We wanted to make sure that at some point in the game or some point at training, if you're struggling, your teammate's there to help you out. And that's an important thing. It's not about one individual person getting the best record and doing 16 on a beat test. I mean, that's great, don't get me wrong, but it's about the person next to you.
Yeah.
Helping them out when they're struggling as well.
That's what I love about team sports.
Yeah, it is.
As opposed to individual sports.
It's mateship.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where you create it. You're creating a coaching staff. They've got that mateship. You've got it as players as well. They've got that mateship as well. And you know that at some point your mate's going to be, struggling in the game. And he's confident enough that you're going to help him out. When he's hitting that, tiredness or fatigue where he wants to give up, he knows he's got somebody next to him to help him along, pat him on the back, say, come on, let's get going again, And that's what it's about. We all struggle in the beat test and the 4 and 5s and all that sort of stuff, but we're looking for somebody to pep us up again, get us up. That goes for the coaching staff as well, because we've all got jobs, we've all got our own lives, we've got our own issues and things like that. And some days you don't feel like you want to train, but when you get into that environment and you've got good people around you, you seem to pep up, and that's what it's about basically. That's what I got out of it as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I wanted to be a drill sergeant and want to make people spew or anything like that. I just wanted to create a good environment.
I thought you wanted that for me.
Yeah, well, I did actually. Deep down, I did anyway. Yeah.
Just for you.
Just for me. Everyone else gets to chill out. Liam, you have to do 4 and 5s all day until
You've got
you
extras.
We're talking off air about how much how I get fascinated with the conversation we've had in the past with the detail that footy games go that people don't see in the naked eye.
Yeah.
I remember we did. I don't know if you remember our conversation about the Billy Slater one. He used to like kick down one certain side to force him to step off 1 foot.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of those things.
Yeah, it just I suppose there's little intricacies of the game that people don't necessarily see, and there's all sorts of them that you would use with different players and stuff like that. But I suppose the big thing sort of from me was that the Billy Slater one. Billy was had carried the ball in a certain hand, so when we'd play against him, we'd kick to one corner, so it was more difficult to come out of that corner for him, which meant that you'd get a better start to your defensive set of 6. Ultimately, rugby league is a pretty simple game where you've got to run hard and you've also got to tackle hard to start off with, but they're the basic building blocks, so you need to make sure that you get those things right to start off with. But once you've got those things right, and at the top level of the game, every player should have that right, otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Then you can bring some other intricacies into the game, and you don't need to have too many. You just need to have some real simple ones there to focus on to give the players a team focus, a bit like what your dad was saying there before. If you can bring the team together so they're all thinking the same thing at the same time, that puts a plan into place where it's going to be a team-based plan. And defensively, so I looked after the defence for the Kiwis team. Defensively, it's much easier to bring a team together because you can put systems and, I suppose, rules into place on this is how we do this at this certain time. That's what I love about defence, is that everyone has to be thinking the same thing at the same time. And if they're thinking something individually, generally that's when you're going to have a poor result. But if they're thinking as a team and they're working together as a team and they have that togetherness in what they do, generally you're going to get some pretty good results. And throughout the tour, we played 4 games. We had the first game was against Australia. We did a really good job at that togetherness. Then we went over to England, and the first 2 tests were pretty good, but we had a few moments in the games where we had lapses around either focus or our understanding of our defensive systems, and we didn't quite get it right, and we had 2 really close losses. But in the final game, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute, we beat them quite convincingly to 0. And as a coach, to beat a team to 0, that's sort of what you want to do. That's what you want to achieve, especially as a defensive coach.
At international level as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're a good side, England. They're not slouches.
Yeah, they're at the top of their game at the moment. I think everyone else is chasing them at the moment. They put a lot of rebuilding into their game over the last 5 years with Wayne Bennett. They've got a lot of depth in their squad there. They've got a top team. They've got a second England team as well that goes off and plays elsewhere. So they're a really strong team at the moment. I think, from our point of view, we're trying to do some of the rebuilding that they've been doing for the last 5 years to get back to that level. And we saw great glimpses in the particular game. Played at Ellen Road at Leeds, one of the big soccer grounds in England, and we were able to put our defensive system together. And it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't far from it. And the things that we've spoken about throughout the tour, we put into play, and we got some really good results. And a lot of the results came from the hunger to work for each other and the togetherness, whereas they didn't want the line to be broken rather than just the systems. But as I said, it still goes back to running hard and tackling hard first. But if they can put some of those other intricacies into place, particularly defensively for me, it allows you to go forward and win games, and it sets up how you're going to defend as a group for a long period of time if you can keep that team together.
On a defensive point of view, how much time, I know how much time you put into the finer details behind the scenes, looking at videos and all that sort of stuff. And if you're going into an international game, how much time do you actually spend on the computer analysing your defensive strategies and the attacking strategies of the opponents?
Yeah, really good question. So leading into the Australian match, because we sort of knew a little bit more about the Australian players because they play in the NRL and we watched them every week basically. We spent probably about the last 5 weeks of the NRL season looking at the players that we thought would be selected in the Australian team and starting to build a game plan around who was going to be most important for them. So obviously they had Tedesco and Damien Cook from the Rabbitohs as 2 key people. We weren't quite sure who their halves were going to be, but we were looking at 2 or 3 different people.
Yeah.
We're probably watching four games a week for the back end of the year, and then obviously when we got into the semi-final period of the NRL, we were watching all of those players on a weekly basis. And then, looking at the State of Origin matches as well, because some of those guys played together in the State of Origin matches. So, we would have done upwards of 50 plus hours of video leading into that.
And what are you looking for? Say you got Daly Cherry Evans as a half.
Yeah.
So you already know what type of player he is.
Yeah.
At
so
club
what do you
level,
at club level? But obviously you don't know as much on international level.
Levels, yeah.
What are you looking for? Like, what's his kicking game?
Yeah. Well, you're looking at intricacies of his game. So how does he play in terms of what's some consistent factors that come out in his game regularly? Because obviously some of the things that he would do at Manly would be due to relationships he has with those players and combinations with those players in those teams. But then there's other things that he would do in his game that are natural assets of his game that wherever he plays, he's going to bring those assets to his game. So his kicking game is very strong. We knew that. We knew he would be the main kicker in the team because he's the main kicker at Manly. You look at the kicking stats for himself, and it ended up being Luke Keary, the other halfback. Although Luke Keary did a lot of kicking in the grand final for the Roosters, generally he was the second string kicker for the Roosters, and he probably only did about a third of the kicking throughout the year, and Cooper Cronk did 2/3 of the kicking. So we knew straight away that a lot of the kicking would be done by Cherry Evans, maybe a little bit done by Damien Cook. So that meant that we could start to focus our kick pressure on Cherry Evans for a period of time and stick with that, even if they went for a few kicks with Keary early in the game. We knew that it would go back to Cherry Evans because he probably does 7/8 of the kicking at Manly. And as I said, Keary only does a third at the Roosters. We knew that Cook would have a kick at some stage throughout the first or second half, and he did. So being prepared defensively for our wingers to be on the ball so it wouldn't be a 40-20. So I suppose the answer around, what they do at club level into international level, you got to look at those, consistent factors that they bring into their game, and that's what we did. And then as a team, how would that combine in with how Luke Keary plays? So attacking wise, we knew Cherry Evans would swing to both sides of the ruck, and we also knew that that Luke Keary would swing to both sides of the ruck. So we started to look for plays that they use at their club level that would be consistent for both teams. So what did Manly do, and what did the Roosters do that they could combine together to come up with a similar type of play, so that when they came together in the international team, they weren't remaking everything. They were sort of going off a similar pace to what they went off at their clubs. And a lot of it's anticipation. So you don't really know that they're going to do it, but you're anticipating that because it's a consistency in their game, that it's likely that's what they're going to go to when they're in the game, the international game. And some of the things they did in that game and we expected them to do, and then other things that we'd spoken about they didn't do either. So it's a little bit of a, not a gamble, but it's an educated guess, I suppose, in what do you think they're going to do based on those consistencies that they've come out with. And I suppose looking at other factors, like Tedesco is going to be a real danger for them on kick return and also around the ruck. So talking about our kicking game and where we were going to kick to try and isolate him so we could win that first tackle. And if we were able to win that first tackle and get control of that first tackle, it was going to allow us to build the set defensively. And then that would take Cook out of the game because Cook would only run if he had a quick play the ball. So slowing down the first tackle and controlling the second tackle as a result of that, and that flow-on effect from there, that would allow Cook to run less in the game and mean that would be less dangerous. So really all you're doing is you're combining all of those different facets together that you see individually and hoping that they come together, I suppose, when they're as a group. And, I think that the results showed on the night that they did. And we were able to get some good results out of them defensively. they probably broke us down in a few areas that were more our combination problems defensively. That we tended to fix up throughout the tour. Guys that hadn't played a lot together, we probably lacked some combinations there, but we got the win at the end of the day. So
I was even stoked for that.
Yeah, I was, and I'm English. It was the only time I'd go against England when Benny's coaching. That's it.
So we were saying off air before that there's a couple of plays that we could analyse, because we were talking about the Billy Slater thing, how I get fascinated with that, and I just wanted to see if we could share some things. Hopefully people can see here.
Performance that the Kiwis have put up in this first half. 3 out of 3.
Yeah, so we're just looking at one of the tries coming up here in the second half.
In forward with the pass away and gets it back from brother Jesse.
So we spoke about controlling our offloads throughout the tour, and we felt that if it was going to be a two-hand offload, where it was a one-on-one tackle, which that was, it was a go-ahead for us. But when we played together as a group last year and in the middle of the year, we had way too many offloads, so we pulled that and stripped that back a bit to try and keep control of the ball. And then as a result of that and choosing the right time, we had plays like this, and if you let it roll there, mate.
New Zealand threatening to flood through again. Omar's put down, but this is the last. It's into the hands of Nicarima. Kicks towards the McGilvray wing. It's a wonderful leap. That is absolutely sensational from Marlo. No need.
McGilvray. And you can see in the picture here, he's able to leap over the top of him, and he put a lot of practice into that. And as a result, we strategically we got a result out of it, attacking wise. I think there's a few others coming up now.
7 minutes 50. Oh, straight into it. I think next one.
The next one here is we're defending our try line here. Jared Warrior-Hargraves gets 10 in the bin, and as a team, I was talking about togetherness and building togetherness. So we're a defensive outfit, and this was a test for us, a challenge for us, where we were going to have one man in the bin. So we played for the 12 players for a period of 10 minutes, obviously. Jared goes off to the bin here, and if you just pause it there, it doesn't matter why he went to the bin, but it was an infringement. They put him in the bin because of, I think there was 3 infringements in a row, but strategically, Jared plays in the middle of the field. So he was missing out of the 4 men in the middle unit. We had 2 intact edges, so we had 4 players on each edge that were there. So strategically, we spoke about tightening our middle up and protecting our middle. Sometimes when you have someone put in the bin, you can become a bit loose through the middle. So we spoke about our 2 4-in defenders, which are our back rowers, tightening the middle up and using really good strong line speed on the edge of the ruck to try and force them around us. So at no stage were they able to come through us and score in or around the post, because that meant that they'd have an easy shot at goal. So that they would go around the outside of us, and to try and force their hand a little bit on the outside, we got up really quick on the outside and tried to make them throw a long pass to go over the top. And we defended our goal line for a period of, if you let it roll, mate, defended our goal line for a period of 3 sets in a row, and then defended it quite well. As you can see here, this is the 3rd set in a row. Great tackle here on Tom Burgess. We're really, really tight there. Joey Martin from the Roosters is defending quite tight in field. They get up really quickly and try and throw the ball over the top, which they do. But because it's a pressure pass, gets his feet on the sideline, which is what we want to achieve. They end up calling no try. Although he almost gets to the try line, the strategy of protecting the middle and forcing them around the outside and making the pass early with good pressure ends up getting us a result because we force them to play rather than allowing them to play. So you'll see here, it's so close, but the high pass puts pressure on the attacking player, gets his feet on the sideline, and we get the ball back and roll down the other end. And from our point of view, when we had a man in the bin, we scored 2 tries rather than letting tries in. And then a little bit later on, they get a man in the bin. I think you're going to go to that now. So they get this man in the bin. Jermaine McGilvray gets put in the bin for holding down too long. And in the period of the game where he got put in the sin bin, a great player he is, by the way, he's a winger. they had to adjust their strategy a little bit, and they had to pull everyone out because they needed to cover the wing, which meant that their middle became vulnerable. And we ended up scoring 2 tries straight through the middle of them, which would be a no-no for our team. You know, if they were going to score when we were short, they go around the outside, they never go through us.
So what did you say you did there then?
He got put in the bin for holding down on a break. So just before that, Joey Tapane had made a break, and when he made the break, McGilvray basically held him down on the ground for an extended period of time, and that's deemed a professional foul, so he gets put in the bin for that.
Most coaches actually coach that, though, don't they? Just to hold them down a little bit longer if you're defending on your try line.
Yeah, they do, Johnny, but only if it's not from a break. So in that situation there was actually a 30-metre break.
Oh, okay.
So because he made the break into the backfield and then Jermaine McGilvray came and flopped on top. That's deemed a professional foul, whereas slowing down in the 10-metre area is what most teams would do. But if it's not a break through the line, because obviously if it was a break through the line on the try line, it'd be a try. So coaches would talk to their teams about staying on a little bit longer to try and allow them to get that line speed.
Do you find that some in international games is more of a free-flowing or more of a defensive game than NRL? Because NRL's games seem to flow a little bit better at throwing the ball a bit more. And
I think that there's
no structure. Like teams like West Tigers, sometimes they play like there's no structure there in their attack, and they just throw the ball around and just keep it alive all the time.
Who was that team that won the Northern Pride? Remember a couple of years ago, they just kept throwing the ball around. That was their strategy, wasn't it?
That was Ipswich.
Ipswich
Jets. Their theory was ball in possession. So the amount of time they could have the ball in possession. So that included like running straight lines across the field that wouldn't be deemed as normal. Running from one side back to the other side. So that they built possession time. And their theory was that if you built possession time, you would win the match. And there's a lot to that theory. But there's also the theory in rugby league of territory as well. So sometimes they would give up territory to keep the ball in possession. And a side that was maybe a bit bigger and stronger and a bit more physical in defence could sort of break down their theory, and the territory theory would be a better theory for them. It's each of their own a little bit.
Did they do that because the Ipswich guys because of the team they had, or did they pick the team based around the game plan they wanted to have?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that originally they did it because of the team that they had. They had some really agile people, a really fast hooker, some guys that had good offloading skills. But I think that maybe as time's gone along, teams have sort of caught up to that playing style a little bit and learned how to defend it. And then maybe they've had some changes of personnel in their team. So the need to change the strategy was important for them as well. I don't know. I haven't watched them too much over the last 12 months, whether they've changed that strategy. But I suppose it's moving with the times and moving with the team that you've got, the strength of the team that you've got. You need to do that as well.
Did you want to go on the next one then?
Yeah.
So this one's a try, I think.
So this is just when the guys in the bin talking about defensively from England, their middle became quite open, and we'd been talking as a team attacking wise about playing very straight, very direct, and it's a pretty simple try. Running back at inside shoulders, nice play from Katie Nicarima, no pass. Jesse Bromwich was too late to him and one close to the line. So as you can see there, he's gone straight through and scored under the post. And theoretically, from our point of view, we would prefer to make them play to go around the outside. And in the sliding defence style, which England has, sometimes that can be a danger, particularly if you've got a man in the bin. And then just here, this last one, I think he may have just come back on the field, or he may be still in the bin, but again, just going straight through the middle here, playing nice and direct. And a nice late try there through a similar type of style where we felt that playing direct was going to be good, and then with a man in the bin it was going to be even better. Rather than trying to go around the outside. This is a nice forwards orientated try where the two middles are working with the back row there, no halves involved. Big Jesse Bromwich has done a great job to get Joey the ball and get it down there in the goal to score the try.
And you guys always used to say that you got to earn the right to go there around the outside anyway.
You do.
Is that why the implementation of playing straight? You got to play straight.
We probably felt that in the first couple of games, particularly the first game against England, we didn't play towards our strengths, like what you were talking about. You're talking about playing towards your strengths, and we felt our strengths was the power of our forward pack and then the speed of our backs. And we probably felt that some of the time we were going to the speed of our backs before we went to the power of our forward pack. So Jared Warrior-Hargraves and Jesse Bromwich, probably two of the best props in the league at the moment, sort of said, Jared calls it knocking down the front door first.
Says.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important theme for any team, that you want to go through the front door first if you can, which what he means by that is going through the back of the ruck and building momentum there before you shift out to the outside and go to the back door or the side of the house or whatever you want to call it. So that's probably where we went back to, and in doing that and playing more direct, and then our halves were able to play a lot straighter as well. And I suppose we honed our game a little bit around that so that they would be more direct. And as you saw there, Katie Nicarima put Jesse Bromwich away from playing deep into the line and straight. And against the sliding outfit, which England is, that tends to bring the better results.
Yeah. And what about, you got a question?
I just thought to myself, when you're away from home and it's hard to keep, the young players have got young families and, trying to keep them upbeat after the game. And what do you do for entertainment-wise to keep the boys, lightheaded, not lightheaded, but sort of like in the
lighthearted,
have a bit of fun. And
it was actually really important because, we lost the first two games over there, and it had been such a good tour coming out of the win against Australia. There was a real need to keep it quite light-hearted. So we did some activities away from footy. So we went and watched Man United play Juventus. That was a return of Ronaldo at Old Trafford.
Wow,
so activities like that to just sort of get their mind away from footy and remind them that they're normal people as well as footy players. So sometimes when you're away, it could get bogged down on just focusing on that they're there to play footy. Yeah, they are there to play footy, but there's also everyday life to do as well, even though you are on a tour. We played a lot of cards, had a lot of jokes and a lot of different activities that we did together. We had team challenges each day. And
Kangaroo court or Kiwi court?
Yeah, it's similar sort of thing where we looked at, I suppose, putting a bit of shit on each other and keeping the banter going. We knew that we were really close with the footy, but it was a matter of keeping that family relationship aspect going. And if we were able to keep that family and relationship aspect going, we felt that we'd get some results at the end. So lots of things like that, and you might see Johnny here with the Liverpool FC jacket on.
Look at him, mate. He's not going to get rid of it.
No, we're out sleeping on it.
So we went to their training place as well, Melbourne, and that was phenomenal. So things like that were able to break the footy side of the tour up to like when we went to Dubai. It made it fun as well as about playing footy, and that was something that we'd spoken about before we went away. Was that it's a long tour. We're going to be away for a long time here together. We need to remember that we're touring as well as playing football. So the tour aspect of letting them have the enjoyment, as long as when we went out to train, it was intent and intensity. That was our theory. If we were able to do that, and whenever we were in footy mode, whether it was review or preview or talking about the game or leading into the game, we were on and focused. But other than that, keeping it lively and light-hearted so that everyone was enjoying their time as well.
And I think that showed in the last game. I think in the first two games they sort of like didn't settle in. There was probably a long flight. I know you don't want to make excuses about it, but you had a long flight. You just get there and you've only got a week preparation before your first game, and then they might show in the first game, but on the last game there, you knew that the side was settled in a little bit, and they had their, was quite confident about what was, the patterns of play that needed to be put into play, and they showed really well, showed that there was a really good side. I always believed that there was a good young side, and I actually thought they was going to get win the series, but it was more to do, I guess. But they played well up to a certain minutes, maybe the 60-minute mark, and they just lapsed a little bit of concentration. It was always in the game. They never blew out anywhere. They never had a blowout score like New Zealand did against England. They never had a blowout score.
We actually felt that even in the Australian game and then the first two games against England, we let a try in within the 5-minute period before half time.
Yeah.
We felt it was a little bit of concentration. So the ability of players at that level of the game, you got the best of New Zealand playing the best of England. We felt that the focus and some of that resilience wasn't in place for the whole 40 minutes and then the whole 40 minutes again. So mentally making sure that players were on, and some of the time it was inexperienced players, whereas in the NRL, you may be able to get away with that, not on a week-to-week basis, but every couple of weeks you might be able to slacken off a little bit and not get caught out for it. What we're finding is players were sort of dropping their focus or not staying in the moment for a short period of time. And that one moment could be the difference between winning or losing the game. And that's probably what happened to us in the first game. We lost by 2 points, and we just had one moment there at the end of the first half. We got an interesting call from the officials, which still counts and all that, so no excuses. But then in the second half, we had a moment where our left edge just clocked off for a really short period of time, and they were able to score a length of the field try, or a try from 50 out, and that was the game there. In that one moment where we lapsed. Yeah. So being able to build the experience that we built through this tour is obviously going to make us better, and then finishing with the game that we finished on, 100%. I think the belief was built throughout the tour. Even though we didn't win those 2 first games, they could feel that something was building there. And they were obviously really disappointed with themselves that they weren't able to get the result. And then by the time we got to the third game, the relationships had built, the play for the jersey mentality had been built, and I think that they were able to work pretty hard to get the result for each other as well as their country.
They must have a good self-belief, because the point is they've beaten the 2 top sides in the world.
Yeah.
Beat Australia and beat England.
That's good. I'm all for that.
I'm all for that. Yeah, I'm all for having knocking out Australia winning everything, because they are sensational sides. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
However, it's good to have a bit of competition in there. Australia, New Zealand, Tonga's up and coming international sides that are coming out now in New Zealand, and Fiji might jump in there now and again, and you never know, Samoa might be there.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy.
You didn't mention Italy at all, then, did you?
Well, yeah, no.
Mate, Italy had a good team last year. They had Tedesco, they had Brown, they had Vaughan.
Yeah. No.
2 of the guys play Origin, but then they're knocking Vaughan and Tedesco back there for a long time until they were probably keen to retire.
Tedesco jumped ship and went to Australia. What Italian is he? He's going to wake up with a horse's head in his bed next week.
That's it.
I think that the international game is in probably the best position it's been in for quite some time.
Thank God, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I had a few conversations with a couple of different media places while I was away about that, and they all asked the question, what do you think of the international game, and what do you think of players being away from clubs for a long period of time at the end of the year? And I sort of said, that's what players play for. They start to play when they're 6, 7 years old. Whenever they start to play, their first dream is to play for their country. Obviously, as time goes along, they become professionals. It's to win grand finals with their club, and to play state of origin for some guys. But the first dream for every player when they grow up is, I want to play for the country that I'm in, or the country that I was born in. For these guys, it was New Zealand, and then for the other guys, it could be Tonga or Australia. We're now in a position where we've got New Zealand, who's going well and building. We've got England, who are going really well. We've got Australia, who they're going through a little bit of a rebuilding phase, because they lost some players and they brought some new players that are excellent players in. So they're building combinations as well, like the New Zealand team. You got, as I said, Tonga, who's sort of just starting to kick, and Fiji, who went really well. So you now got this pool of teams that are strong teams, and you're having competitive matches across the board. There's not large scores like there might have been 10 years ago. I think it's outstanding for the international game, and people are now looking at the international game going, can't wait till Australia plays New Zealand again, or I can't wait till New Zealand plays Tonga, and I can't wait for New Zealand to play England, because the games are close, and the games are edge of your seat type stuff.
And they're bringing their own rivalries, like the South versus Roosters rivalry. They're bringing their Australia,
that's right,
Australia Kiwi rivalry, or Australia. It's good to have those rivalries.
Rugby union's got it, because they have the Bledisloe Cup, don't they? And they always have New Zealand against Australia at least once every second year, or
once a year.
More than once a year.
So they've got it there, and
they have less games though, don't they? Like Super 15, there's only like 18 games. NRL is like 32, isn't it?
And that's the interesting debate, Liam, is that some people, within the game would say, oh, well, it's more important to play the NRL games and the games at the end of the year, which are the international games, they should suffer. But I think the quality of the games now for the international level is starting to say that, no, they shouldn't suffer, but maybe if adjustments do need to be made, I don't know if they do need to be made, but if they think they need to be made, they should be made elsewhere. Like talking to the guys in England, some of the sides in England this coming year will play 38 matches of rugby league, between the Challenge Cup, the Super League and the different competitions they have over there. Our guys are maybe playing 28 plus international matches. We're nowhere near what England's playing and they're still getting through and they're still going okay. And I'm all for player welfare and all of that, but I think making decisions around which way we're going to go with international matches shouldn't be based on number of games. Other adjustments should be made elsewhere because the international game is what kids are striving to, and that's their dream when they're kids. We shouldn't take that away. That's for sure.
Yeah. You see, I don't keep going back to rugby union, but the point is they have the Hong Kong Sevens and they have the South Africans.
They're always promoting the game.
They're always promoting the game, whereas rugby league has just got it. I mean, I thought the Auckland Nines was a bit of an okay.
They should take that to Europe, though.
Yeah, they should take it to a country like America,
but there is
Canada or somewhere like that to promote the game, but they just stick with the same countries that are.
I think they're going to do an international nines next year, rather than the Auckland Nines. So I'm pretty sure somewhere towards the end of the season they're doing an international nines. So New Zealand, Australia, England, some of the other nations will play in that. So not quite a World Cup as it was last year, but a similar sort of thing. Played over a weekend like the Auckland Nines was. That'll be super exciting. So I think the international game. The International Federation, they actually had a conference while we were away and all of the nations came together. I think they've formed a bit of a calendar for the next 12 months. So there's a lot of games in place and teams can start planning for what they're going to do. And, the international nines, as I said, I think that the international game is going to build definitely over the next 12 to 24 months. And, things are going to keep moving forward there.
Because if you have, you go back to union again, USA go pretty good at the nines level, and now they're starting to kick goals in the 15s level as well. Like they just beat Scotland at the start of the year. They've never beaten. I don't think they've ever beaten Scotland before. So I think that having that ability to have the more time you get on field in that nation or that. In that jersey, the more opportunity that you have to gel as a team. Yeah,
and more belief and all of those sorts of things as well. And that's part of the gelling is, creating that belief amongst each other.
I mean, I'm a bit biased. I'd rather watch rugby league than rugby union. So I'm thinking as a spectator point of view now, not as a coach, whatever you want to call me or whatever. But I'm looking at a spectator's point of view that. To have an international tournament in America to promote the game, or in Hong Kong or something like that, I'd open the game up immensely. And it gives, and then what it does, it brings more players to get involved. You don't necessarily have to play NRL, but you can play an international level, can't you? And play international football and get picked in for an international sevens or nines or tens, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but
I'm biased as well. I think league's a better game.
It's a lot more flow.
I don't know. I feel like it's a better game, but then it's had the chokehold of private schools, and that's the embedded background of it all, isn't it? So that's why there's the people playing in Hong Kong for rugby union is that they're more enticed to do that because they've got jobs afterwards. They've got high banking jobs and stuff like that. So people are like, well, if I'm going to play a couple of years of union, we get paid well, and then I've got a job with what's the bank called? HSBC. They do contracts with that. So that's the beauty of the union side of things. That's why it's probably more enticed. But I feel like league's a better game. I'm biased.
No, I think league's a better game to watch. But I mean, I'm looking at it as a spectator now as well.
But I like them both. I like union in different ways. I think there's different skill sets. I remember you brought East down years ago, and I feel like you've always been like that. You guys have always been. You've always been bringing other sports in.
Yeah, we look at other sports as well.
And other teams in and see what you can learn from each other. I think that's a really good point of view to have.
I think people tend to sort of get knuckled into what they're in rather than not necessarily looking outside. I'm a big believer in you got to look after your own backyard first and have all of that taken care of. But having a fixed mindset of is what we do here is the only way to do it. That's not a way of getting better. And as a person that likes to get better and improve, looking outside at other things and then choosing the things that are good from that other sport and implementing them in your sport can only make your sport better. And I think if you have that fixed mindset of, we're not going to look anywhere else and we're not going to take anything else into account, well, you'll just sit in a dormant spot and not move forward with your own particular team. And we've done that with lots of sports. We've done it with tennis even, looking at the footwork of tennis. And, you look at tennis, there's some of the best agile athletes on the planet. You look at AFL, the best agile athletes on the planet, where rugby league has a part of agility in there in certain positions in particular, or you want to improve the agility of certain positions. Well, just doing an agility drill that we've always done at rugby league is not going to necessarily change anything. But going away and learning, well, why does tennis do it in this particular manner? You then have to have an open mind to be able to go back to your sport and see if it's able to be implemented into your sport. And the theory that they've got may be a theory that could change how you do everything that you do or change some of the things that you do. And being able to go and look at those sports and talk to other people, that opens up a lot of doors around sometimes just your thinking space rather than your actual doing space. And if you can open that thinking space, you might be able to then put into play a new coaching strategy as a result that can improve your players.
Is that because of your strength and conditioning background first? Or do you feel that you've always had that in mindset? Because you're an exercise physiologist.
Yeah, I think it's just a growth mindset. So, it's the strength and conditioning background.
Because you see most coaches that they come from, they might come from NRL playing and they go straight into coaching. But you've had that time to look at things from an analytical point of view from strength and conditioning from different sports. So you've translated that into now coaching, which is a double skill, I reckon.
It's probably more of the teaching background. So when you're from the teaching background, whether it's the exercise physiology stuff or the coaching stuff, it's you're always trying to make people better. And that's sort of, as a teacher or a coach, that's what you want to achieve. You want to make people better in the space that they're in, whether it's physical performance-wise or just generally as people. So as a coach, that's what I look to try and do is make people better. And the only way you're going to be able to make an athlete that's at the top of their game better is by maybe doing something slightly differently. And you can't do anything differently to what they've been doing for the last 15 years in the game that they've been playing unless you bring new ideas from different areas. And that's what I like to do, whether it's young players that I've worked with for a short period of time, just giving them a different perspective, or whether it's very experienced players that are at the top of their game, sometimes giving them a different perspective can be enough stimulus to remotivate them in a particular area of their game where they're not going so well.
That's what Dad was saying about Ferguson.
Yeah.
He does that. He's a people manager, isn't he?
I was saying to my side Liverpool that Benny had spent a bit of a session, a one-on-one session with Jurgen Klopp, who's the manager there at Liverpool, and I think he learned a bit, a bit about sport and management off him, so.
Yeah, and it was just a short period of time. We spent about 10 minutes with him, one-on-one, and he was a real vibrant type character, and for a fella that's in a high pressure position to be so vibrant and sort of excited about his job, it was quite enlightening. But probably the takeaway point from him was that he works by a theory at Liverpool where you leave your ego at the door. So when they drive into their sanctum that they've got there, they drive in and they get out of their car, everyone's even. Whether it's the lady upstairs in the restaurant that they have where they eat their breakfast, lunch and dinner, whether it's the lady at the front office, the gear steward, the physio, it doesn't matter who you are, everyone's equal. Or whether it's the 200 million pound man that earns all the bucks and scores all the goals, It doesn't matter who you are, they're all on an even keel. And I think that the coach there has been able to implement that. So there's real humility in the organisation, and I think that if you can get that humility in an organisation, and becomes a successful organisation because everyone's working towards the one purpose, because they're not worried about themselves, they're worried about the team.
Yeah.
And that's why Alex Ferguson had the success of Manchester United for 25 years. He just created. He was a good people's person, and he
was like a father figure.
Yeah, he was a father figure. He didn't have no. I mean, he was, best friends with the tea lady. He was best friends with the gear steward,
but still, at the same time, he had that respect, though, didn't he?
He had respect, but he respected other people as well. Like, he didn't think Alex Ferguson don't talk to me like because I'm on $10 million pound a year. He didn't have that.
Didn't he do something with Beckham? Like he said to Beckham. He had this fancy haircut. He goes, "Get rid of that fucking haircut." He's the only person who can get David Beckham to get rid of his fancy haircut
because he respected him.
Yeah.
He said to David Beckham, I don't know whether you know it, he scored a fantastic goal right from the halfway line, and he took a shot, and the goalie was out of position, and he scored this. It's well now. It's on YouTube and everything. And Beckham scores it from the halfway line, lobs it, and gets a goal.
Yeah.
And everybody's cheering about it. And then at the end of the game, Alex Ferguson said to him, it was a good fucking job you scored that goal.
No, really?
He couldn't get LS. He just put him straight down again. He says, good job you scored that fucking goal, mate.
Yeah.
Because to him, it's a wasted of a kick if you missed it.
Yeah.
But he said to him, it's a good job you scored it.
Yeah.
And he respected that straight away, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, well, that's the key, I guess, to have longevity and a lot of success in your life is be a people person as a coach, I guess. And I guess even if you're just a normal outgoing person and be honest with people and share your opinions, I think that's the key for all of us.
You guys have done made my life better anyway, so I appreciate it, boys.
No,
I won't say the C word on air.
You're a bunch of
CUNT, but I meant that with love. Well, so what's next? Before we go, do you know? Can you tell us what?
Not sure, mate. Not sure. Just roll with things and see what happens over the next month or so, and more than likely stick with the Kiwi team come next year. Just sort of wait and work that out over the next few weeks and get back into some sort of coaching over the next couple of weeks, just sort of trying to work out where that's going to go now.
Don't know.
No, not quite yet. No. So, we'll see.
I'm sure something else.
We'll see what happens. It's just, I think if anything I've learned over the last 12 months, you just sort of roll with the punches and things will fall into place pretty quickly. So
I'm looking forward to seeing you one day as an NRL coach, if that's still the
dream. We hope so.
Yeah,
definitely.
If not, Super League coach. Anyway.
Super League, that's
maybe,
it. Yeah. Thank you so much, boys. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.